Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making shrimp and veggie tempura. Let's start with the dipping sauce. Over medium-high heat in a small saucepan, we're going to add in 1/4 cup of mirin. We're going to bring that to the boil and let it boil for about a minute, burn off some of that alcohol. Then we're going to add in 1/4 cup of soy sauce, 1 cup of water, and 1 tablespoon of dashi powder, which you can usually find in the Asian section of your grocery store. We're going to bring this to a simmer and let this cook for an additional minute to make sure that dashi powder dissolves and that everything is well incorporated. After a minute, we can shut off the heat, move this over, and bring this to room temperature. We also need a little daikon radish, which is just a Korean radish, and we need about 5 tablespoons of grated daikon. We also need 1.5 teaspoons of grated ginger. A little bit of this goes a long way. Now we want to press out as much of that liquid as possible, pop this in a bowl, and stick this in the fridge till we're ready to use it. For our vegetables, you can use whatever vegetables you want, but I have a Japanese eggplant, just giving this a little choppity chop on bias into nice even discs. Now eggplant contains a lot of water inherently, so we're going to go in and cut some slits, not all the way to the top. We want a little piece to hold this together. This is going to let that water release as we fry. We're going to place this on some paper towel and lightly season with salt, not only to season but to draw out more water. Now I have 2 very large shiitake mushrooms here. I've just wiped them off with a little damp paper towel, removing that stem but reserving it for veggie stock. We're just going to choppity chop these up into nice thick strips. You could substitute this with portobello mushroom, button mushroom, whatever your heart desires. These are shiso leaves. I've just given these a really good rinse. I'm going to let them air dry, but I'm going to keep them whole. My partner requested green beans, so I'm going to keep these whole as well. I've given them a really good rinse as well, popping off that stem part and salting them lightly. These are purple sweet potatoes. If you can't find purple sweet potatoes, just use regular, but look at that beautiful color. Just chopping off those 2 tail ends, giving these a quick peel. And then we are going to cut these on the bias as well into thin discs. We want this to cook thoroughly without burning the batter. This is a lotus root. It's absolutely beautiful. If you can't find lotus root, that's fine, but if you've never had it before, it's like if a water chestnut and a bamboo shoot had a baby. Giving that a little peel and then just chopping this up into discs. Salting these as well. Now I want to use onion, but I want to kind of keep it whole. So to get whole rings, I'm just using a toothpick, passing it through all of the layers, and giving this a nice little choppity chop, and that should stay together. It's always a good idea to think safety first, cut off a little bit so you have a flat edge, so it sits flat as you go to cut. I am going to fry with toothpicks in, just remove them before you serve it to your guests. I have a pound of tiger shrimp. I've cleaned and deveined these, and as you know, shrimp likes to curl. So to get these flat, I'm going to flip this over and start making tiny shallow cuts. I did take off those tail ends. I know for presentation it looks very pretty, but sometimes water lives in there and I didn't want this to pop as I went to go fry it. If it's still not lying flat, just go ahead and cut shallow slits in the side as well. Give this a little press and we should be good to go. I'm just putting these on a paper towel and lightly salting. Now we can start on our batter. It's very important to have cold, wet ingredients for your batter. So we are measuring out 300 milliliters of very cold water. This is going to stop the gluten formation in our batter. Adding in 1 cold egg, giving this a little whisk, and then adding in some ice cubes, or in my case, a large ice cube. For the dry ingredients, we need 200 grams of ideally cake flour, which I didn't have. I only had AP flour. So to remedy that, I'm going to remove 3 tablespoons, saving that for dredging. And I'm going to replace that with 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. We want cake flour because it is low gluten, but this is a good remedy for that. We're going to pass this through a sieve, just get on any weird lumps, and make a huge, gigantic mess as we do it. Now we're ready to add the wet to our dry, and I'm mixing this with chopsticks. You could mix it with a whisk, but we don't want a super smooth batter here. We want a couple lumps, that's perfectly fine. Adding in the ice cube as well, it's going to keep our batter nice and cold so that it pops, not pops, it expands when it hits that hot oil. So it should be like a lumpy, heavy cream consistency when you're done mixing. Now on the stove, I'm heating up about an inch of vegetable oil to 335 Fahrenheit, taking each ingredient, dredging it in the dry flour before placing it in the batter, coating that thoroughly, and then popping that in the hot oil. Now tempura isn't like super crispy brown. It's crispy, but it's not this dark brown. It's a light golden color. To get those extra crispy bits, just dip your fingers in the batter and drizzle it over the top of whatever you're frying. I like using chopsticks for this because you can feel the crispiness if it's done. They should only take about 5 to 6 minutes to cook. I'm not going to show you every ingredient because that would just take forever. Now I'm going in with the shrimp, and this takes even less time, 2 to 3 minutes tops. Between fries, take a spider or a little sieve and remove any of those bits that haven't stuck to your ingredients because they're going to burn and kind of disflavor, is that a word? It's going to change the flavor of your oil. You also want to salt immediately after you pull this out of the oil. It's not going to stick to cold. So to plate, I'm in a nice bowl. I'm adding in our eggplant, our purple sweet potatoes, and again, you can use whatever ingredients you want. Asparagus is great, broccoli, adding in our onion, our shiitake mushrooms, our gorgeous tall green beans, some lotus root, the star of the show, our shrimp, and last but not least, our little shiso leaf. Now for the dipping sauce. I have a little side bowl here, just ladling in a little bit of our sauce. We're going to top this with a little bundle of our grated daikon and ginger. Now let's go ahead and give this a taste. The batter of this is light, crispy, airy, and subtle. The shrimp is perfectly cooked. The dipping sauce adds a little spiciness from that radish and ginger, saltiness, this umami and smokiness from that dashi. The shiitake mushrooms are by far my favorite. I don't even need the shrimp in this dish. This is so meaty and hearty. And let's go in with the shiso leaf. This is such a subtle, grassy, fresh flavor. If you haven't had shiso leaves before, I do highly recommend you try one if you can. But there it is, shrimp and vegetable tempura. I hope you all try to make this. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you loved it, subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again, and until next time, happy cooking. Hey babe, you want some cold tempura?